I'm Matt Lewis. He is Charlie Sykes. Together, we are Sykes and Lewis. And I'm psyched to see you, Charlie Sykes. How are you, man?
Well, good. I wish we would have started the week off being able to talk about something other than the Democratic appeasement of Donald Trump and the cave-in. But I don't know how you feel about that. Are you going to try to lipstick that pig? Are you?
No. I will play devil's advocate
Okay.
in a few minutes.
Okay.
But I'm with you on this one, Charlie. So part of it is just the psychological thing, right? I mean, I feel like Democrats have spent years having this inferiority complex, so to speak, like feeling like they were down and out. No matter what they do, Donald Trump's always winning. And they get this shot in the arm on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
And the public, the polling all says Republicans are getting blamed for the shutdown. And the exit polling in the key states says Republicans are getting blamed. And that lasted 5 days by my count. So
Trump said
I don't get it.
Because of the shutdown. Trump was acknowledging that the shutdown was responsible. Yeah. And that lasted 5 days. And by the way, but in those 5 days, you had Donald Trump with the worst optics that I can remember in a very, very long time. These lavish Mar-a-Lago parties at the very same time. He's got lawyers trying to shut down the SNAP benefits. And you're seeing, more attention being paid to the fact that these healthcare premiums were coming up. Trump himself was like throwing shit up against the wall, the 50-year mortgage. I mean, where did these ideas come from? I'm going to send out $2,000, stimulus checks or whatever. And so it really did feel like this is one of these, again, sort of against all odds, that the Democrats were doing well on the shutdown. And then, boom.
Yeah.
As you put it, snatching defeat from the jaws of hope and victory.
I think I might have tweeted that out. And that's what it feels like, Charlie. It really felt like, look, the Tuesday's election was exciting. It was unifying for Democrats, and they were winning, and different types of Democrats were winning in different types of areas. Mamdani winning in New York, but Spanberger and Sherrill winning in Virginia and New Jersey, respectively. And it seemed like they turned the corner. There was excitement. It was starting to look like the redistricting is going to be basically a wash.
Wow, yes.
The midterm redistricting. And so for the first time in a long time, it was starting to feel good. By the way, are you hearing like an echo? I'm kind of hearing, is that me or you? Or
That's
is it my,
you. Yeah.
It might be my audio bleeding through your...
Well, yeah, let me actually, while you're talking, let me play around with this for a little bit here. So,
all right, cool. All right, it's not happening. Well, it is happening a little bit.
Yeah.
So, long story short, I mean, it felt, and look, I get this. There are serious people being hurt. In fact, I went to dinner with two of them recently. I have relatives who have been out of work and not getting paid for like a month now or something like that. And I get it. I mean, where I live in the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia. There's a ton of people in West Virginia, Maryland, Virginia, the areas that I've lived primarily, who are commuters who work for the government. So I get that it hurts real people, but look, if Democrats at this point, it was kind of like, here's the thing I think we learned, Charlie. The perception among the public is Donald Trump and the Republicans are in charge of everything. Ergo, they take the blame for everything. So why, if you're a Democrat, would you want to bail them out just when the public... Because, by the way, the public's not apparently going to care about things like, I don't know, losing liberal democracy. Like that's apparently not going to alarm the general public. What they do seem to care about are airport delays and and affordability, right? And prices and things like that. And
attention. Yeah.
Yes, finally. And why would you give that away? And I hate to sound like a Marxist or something, but it did seem like we've arrived at a point where, like, the worse the better. If you're a Democrat, if you're purely Machiavellian, purely being strategic here, you've tried everything else. You've tried to convince people that you're losing the democracy. They don't seem to care. Finally, the public had turned on Trump, or starting to turn on Trump and blame him. And so you're like, can't let that go on. Can't let that continue.
Yeah. Okay. So let me be a little bit charitable here, and that maybe they were concerned about this. Let's put country first, right? I mean, there are people hurting. We don't want to do this. We don't want to have, we don't want to weaponize hungry people. We don't want to see the the nation's, air traffic shut down. But this is the and again, I'm hearing all these rationalizations. Well, but the Republicans are still, in a bad place because they're going to have to take a vote on on the healthcare premiums, right? Hey, this is the moment where Matt, you and I need to step back. I agree with everything you just said, but let's put this in context. So much of the commentary, particularly the people who are rationalizing this, are acting as if this is normal politics. It is not normal politics. I mean, how do we need to be reminded of the moment we are actually in, what time it is? I mean, do we honestly need to do this? After all this
What
time,
time it
now I'm
is.
watching people who spent 10 years being, never Trump, never Trump, never Trump. And it's like, well, no, but look at the gamesmanship here. Okay, the gamesmanship here is that we have had 9 months of Trump's radical, very rapid consolidation of authoritarianism. We have troops on the streets of American cities, right? We have an orgy of lawlessness. He has turned the Department of Justice and the FBI into his own personal Praetorian guard of retribution. He is running over one constitutional guardrail after another. He's imposing massive new taxes on the American people. He is threatening war without congressional approval. He is engaging in extrajudicial murders on the high seas. I mean, we can go on and on. We have massed ICE brute squads who are terrorizing minority communities. And so at this moment, to treat any of this as like normal politics seems serious malpractice. You can look at it in the small thing. It's like, folks, have you forgotten what we are going through here? So what do the Democrats do? They have this one point of leverage. Now, because they are the smart kids, they decided we're not going to make any of that authoritarianism, the focal point. We're going to go after high premiums on healthcare. Okay, I get it. That actually was working for them. It's a 75-25 issue, 80-20 issue. But okay, we wake up on Monday morning and they get nothing. They give up on the one thing. We're not going to talk about, this authoritarian consolidation. We're not going to talk about any of this shit. We're going to go all in on healthcare premiums. Okay, never mind. We're going to settle for a meaningless promise for a future vote that we're going to lose. So in the end, what do the Democrats get from this 40 days of pain? They got nothing. Donald Trump is sitting back there and going, you know what? I got somebody else to pay. My madman theory worked with them. I scared them. I took hostages and it worked. What lesson does Donald Trump take from this other than, hey, I take hostages. I say I'm going to do crazy shit. And those 8 or 9 or whatever members of the Senate, they are going to grovel. I'm sorry. That was my reason.
They did. Well, look, I mean, a couple things come to mind here, right? So, like, I get that what I was proposing was somewhat Machiavellian and strategic, but so is the idea of caving now so you can preserve the healthcare subsidies for tomorrow. That's a very cynical strategy. And if Democrats did that, then they're playing they're playing politics too. They're just playing a different form of politics. And I think they're playing the weaker hand. I think they're playing the weaker hand, right? And to your point, Charlie, look, I just speak for myself. My health insurance costs are going to go up about over $1,000 a month. So we're talking over $12,000. Yes, I live in West Virginia, one of the hardest hit states, and neither my wife or I are currently employed. Like, we work for ourselves, and so we're going to get hit really hard. It's going to dramatically increase. And this is what they told us they were fighting for. They told us this was what it's about. It's not about democracy. It's about we're going to stop the healthcare costs from rising. Now, they might say, well, we made our point. Well, I'm not sure. I actually don't. I bet you if I were to go out here and conduct a survey and talk to 100 people in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia today and say, what was this shutdown about? I bet you 5 of them might say it was the Obamacare subsidies expiring. I don't think that message actually sunk in. I don't think people really understood that that's what Democrats were fighting for, actually. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But look, how about this? Let's say that I were Chuck Schumer and I were doing this. I'll tell you what I would do. I would bring in Dick Morris, and we would, not really Dick Morris, but a Dick Morris type troll in the basement on their computers with 3 of those screens. And we would look at the polls every single day. And as long as Republicans and Donald Trump were being blamed, we would keep going. If that started to turn, if we started to see a point at which those numbers were changing, maybe then we would reevaluate. But I wouldn't do it breaking the backs and the momentum of this coalition that just emerged on election day. I do have one thing, though, Charlie. We haven't talked yet about the filibuster. There is the notion that Democrats caved. And by the way, these Democrats, I mean, look, I hated it when Republicans were all like, but he fights. War, he fights. But I'm like, these Democrats do not fight. Jeanne Shaheen and Angus King are not leading anybody into any battle. They're retreating. Even their demeanor seems so soft and weak. It's pathetic. But the one thing, what if they were afraid of the filibuster? Would that be a valid argument?
That actually, when I was trying to be as charitable as I could yesterday, thinking through this, I actually like Angus King. I think these are thoughtful people. I mean, Tim Kaine, I don't think is a stupid guy. So like, what was really going on here? It did feel like there was another agenda that led them to do that. That maybe they realized that they were going to invoke the nuclear option, and they were so afraid of that. Well, you know what? I actually am a support. Here's my contrarian position. I actually do kind of support the filibuster. On the other hand, it's happened in the past. I mean, we did have a nuclear option to get Supreme Court justices confirmed. Remember, this happened. It is not necessarily the end of the world. And to a certain extent, if you want to make the point that Donald Trump, that Donald Trump and the Republicans own everything, okay, let them nuke it, let them pass it on a party line vote, and then they own everything that is happening. But I also think you get your point about the healthcare costs. Whether it had settled it. I think there is some indication that was actually a message was getting out, but it's early. It was only November 1st they really kicked in. It is November 11th. Like, you have to give things some time. And once you've gone this long into the shutdown, let it play out for another week. Find out what the Supreme Court is going to do with the SNAP benefits. These are issues that are very easy to understand. And I guess, part of it, I keep coming back to this. These are abnormal political times, and yet we often evaluate them in terms of normal politics. This is the problem with Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer is a politician from the before times. And this does not require the politics of the before times right now. And I understand the kind of the political strategists who said, no, but now we're going to make, Republicans take these tough votes on all of that. Okay, well, all right, guys, again, go outside, touch grass, look at what's happening to the country here. And this whole thing like, yes, these Republicans are going to be embarrassed by taking these tough votes. It's as if some of these people have like this aphasia over the last decade here. This was the moment when Donald Trump was digging himself a hole. There was all kinds of at least a sense of momentum I actually kind of felt it last week could have been a sort of turning point. The elections, the skeptical justices of the Supreme Court, the terrible optics of Trump's lavish parties at the same time that you were about to start to see bread lines, and people like you were about to see these massive increases in premiums. And it was the timing of it. It was as if the football was right there in front of them, and here comes Chuck Schumer and Lucy and all the others, and they just rip the goddamn football away.
And
that's why people are so angry. And people, by the way, that's why people are so angry today. Really angry.
I agree. It also looks cynical too. It's like, we got through the elections. We used the shutdown to win the election. Now let's get back to, regular order. It's such a politician thing to do. Look, I think there are, as we've discussed, you and I both feel a certain way. I think we're on the same page, but we're both open to playing devil's advocate a little here. And I think we've done a pretty good job of making the devil's case. I think at the end of the day, though, if you even everything out and you weigh the pros and the cons, that this positive, like overwhelming reason that this was a bad idea is what you were just talking about, Charlie. And that is that you need morale. That this destroys morale. Democrats have been so desperate for any moment where they were gaining momentum. And think about sports, a team's losing up until something happens. There's an interception, right? There's a turnover, and then they start getting first down. Maybe you get like a running back gets a first down, and then maybe you miss a pass, but they were starting to build that momentum, and this just destroys that, or at least has the risk, I think, of destroying that.
Okay, I agree with that completely. But again, let me pull back the lens a little bit. And here's my radical position, and I'm going to lose everybody on this one because this apparently is quite radical, including with some of my old colleagues. You can't beat Donald Trump by surrendering to him. You cannot resist Donald Trump by caving into him. You cannot find a way to restore, fix the damage he's doing by what was the Angus King quote from I have here? Standing up to Donald Trump didn't work. Senator Angus King.
It was working. It was working.
Well, you didn't do it. You didn't stand up. Thank you, Senator King. Now, when you get up off your knees, tell us what does work. So standing up to Donald Trump doesn't work.
I can guarantee you.
Yes, but surrendering to Donald Trump definitely does not work.
Yeah.
This is not that complicated. And this is the part of the problem of seeing the shutdown is as this isolated little thing, and I'm really kind of sick of the win-loss punditry. Everything's a horse race. Everything is gamesmanship. It's like, guys, there's something going on in this country right now. And there's only one political party that's going to be able to stop it right now.
Yeah.
So it does come down to a binary choice. You are either going to fight and resist Donald Trump and beat him in the midterm elections, or you're going to demoralize yourself by saying resistance is futile. So here you have, and this has been the story. You've had the universities, the law firms, major media companies all cave in, the oligarchs come in. And then what did the Democrats do? At the very moment, the one institution that the Constitution gives tremendous power to stand up and resist what's happening. And what do they do? Cave in.
And
you wonder.
Let's say you're
don't
right.
Give me the bullshit that they're winning. I mean, because I'm a nice guy, I describe that as piffle. I think I have stronger words that I could use.
I want to get to that in one sec, but let me also say, if you're right and people did know that this was about healthcare, what signal did Democrats just send them? We were willing to fight a little. We were willing to fight a little to keep your healthcare costs from going up, but we're not going to go all the way with it. We're not going to actually cause anybody any problems with it. I mean, that's not worth actually really delaying your flight over that kind of thing.
So you're right. So what do you think about Chuck Schumer? I need to, full disclosure, when Chuck Schumer did not go along with shutting down the government earlier in the year, I very reluctantly kind of agreed that maybe he was making the right call. I mean, my heart wanted the fight, but it was not a fight the Democrats were going to win. Maybe it wasn't right. Now I'm thinking, again, he voted against this, but clearly he gave it the green light. You know that he gave it the green light. I'm not making a prediction about whether he survives or not. I am saying that the case for moving on generationally is overwhelming today. What do you think?
Yeah. I think generally this Tuesday morning Substack Live is a good pairing, but the problem we have, Charlie, is that you and I agree on so much. I think we come down on the same, we're not going to fight over this one. Yeah, look, I was with you in March or April by giving him kind of a pass, and I got it. But he's just not the right man for the right time. He's just not the right person for the time. He might have been a great leader 25 years ago or something, but like the world has passed him by. The situation today demands people who know what time it is, to use the right-wing terminology. He doesn't know what time it is. He's still playing by the old rules. And look, it's hard for me to kind of keep up with what the hell's going on. I don't see how he's going to do it. So again, I don't want to be like mean to him, but he should do what Nancy Pelosi just did. It's know when, declare victory, and Charlie, you've been hinting at So I had a theory. If you're a columnist or a podcaster, you've got to always be looking at angles or theories or takes, right?
Yeah.
I was trying to develop a take, and my take was the Democrats are weak and soft, but those of us who are Republicans, I'm still a Republican, by the way, but those of us who are Republicans or former Republicans, we are tough because we came up through the Lee Atwater School of Politics. And so my theory was going to be us never Trump conservatives, we wanted Democrats to fight. We thought that was the smart move, but it's those weak Democrats but that's a horrible take because this thing it's unpredictable how it's breaking down. I'm looking at conservative never Trump pundits, some of whom used to be Republican operatives who are like, hey, nothing to see here. This is great. Some folks at the Bulwark, Morning Joe, and these are people that oftentimes have very good takes that I agree with. In this case, I don't understand why they see the world differently than you and I do. Do you have a theory on why they think this is great or at least okay?
Well, no, but I do think that there's what word do I want to use here? I just think sometimes you get drawn into the punditry of the small ball punditry of wins and losses in a small time. So I don't. Also, I do think there's a divide every once in a while between people who come into this from journalism from sort of an independent point of view versus the people who've actually been the operatives, the people who have done that, because the operatives are very, very skilled tacticians, and working it out. Um, they're not necessarily always the big picture people, but I don't know. I just think the key thing is that if you are never Trump, you need to be focused on how do you stop what he is doing, this man, scratch your ideological id some other time. This is where I got into a big argument, back in 2024 when I said, look, the prime directive of the Democratic Party is not the reelection of Joe Biden. Your prime directive is not, this agenda or that agenda. Your prime directive is blocking Donald Trump's return to power. Now, obviously, they failed um, rather badly at all of that. But I think this is the kind of point. Remember what time it is. Remember what the stakes are. Remember what the overall context is. Remember all of the steps that it took us to get here. And then don't evaluate it based on this news cycle or that news cycle, or this weird assumption that, yes, there's going to be a couple of embarrassing votes and that justifies this massive surrender. I'm sorry. That's a little bit of too much Washington, D.C. insider Kool-Aid for me.
So it is what it is, right? It's happened, whether we like it or not. So do you have a sense for, I guess it's going to be a couple months from now, there could be another shutdown again. And and more and more people are going to have seen their healthcare costs increase without the subsidies. So I guess there is an argument, though, that's not complete BS that Democrats get another bite at this apple, and this wasn't a one-off thing. What do you make of that?
Well, no, I mean, look, it's not over. I mean, it's Democrats, I still think are in a better position than they were, say, a week ago. Despite all of this, and I think you're having kind of a shakedown. I mean, you're having the shakedown, within the Democratic Party. Look, there are a number of different divides. There's the center and the right. I mean, we've talked about that before. But also there's this divide between the people who understand how to fight Donald Trump and what it's going to take to win the midterm elections. And I think that you're seeing that outside of Washington. We're not seeing it in Washington. Yes, there are more bites to the apple, and maybe they will learn a lesson from all of this. Maybe they will learn to do this. And again, these issues will become sharper. I mean, if you're right and the healthcare premium thing hasn't kicked in, boy, by next spring it will have kicked in. A lot of things will have kicked in. We'll have more clarity about what the state of the economy is. We'll have more clarity about what the status of the tariffs are. And I have to say, I just kind of like switch back. The other reason that I think we're in a very interesting time is those election results last week, which we haven't really talked about. I mean, we're amazing in terms of the margins. You look at the demographic shift. A normal political party will find a way to pivot to respond to it. And you look at the incredible
Mm-hmm.
hemorrhage of support for Republicans among young
Yeah.
people, among Hispanics, among Asian American voters. Um, what is going to happen over the next 6 months that will change that trajectory? And my guess is everything will get worse for Republicans because Donald Trump and Kristi Noem and Stephen Miller and Tom Homan and all those other, that whole thug squad, they are going to double, triple, quadruple down on the masked ICE
Yeah.
agents going after, going into the city. These things are backfiring on Donald Trump dramatically because it turns out amazingly, though these ICE videos have gone viral, and I think they're having an impact. So the Republicans right now are really, before the Canaan, it's like, man, you guys are in a world of hurt right now. You are losing all these demographic groups, and there's no chance that Donald Trump is going to go, hey, maybe take the masks off, maybe have ICE, hand out ice cream cones instead of shoot priests in the head with pepper ball. That's just not going to happen.
And ironically, I mean, I think the good news here for Democrats, it's an ironic point, is that like the people who are doing this stuff are ideologues. They're not going to back down because of bad polling or bad optics, right? So Stephen Miller is like truly committed to a white nation and getting rid of immigrants. And Ross Vogt is truly committed to like strangling government in the bathtub, and destroying the administrative state, regardless of how that looks and how that happens. And so these are like deeply committed ideologues who are not likely to like pump the brakes because of a bad election or bad PR. So
Yeah.
unlike the first term where there were like deep state figures and establishment types who sort of kept Trump under wraps. And, Trump loved these tariffs. I mean, he really does. And that may be the one exception to your point, Charlie, is I think the Supreme Court may stop him from, the tariff regime that he has done unilaterally without congressional approval. That may be the one exception. But in general, I think you're right. It's going to get worse because they're immune to feedback, the public feedback. And when it comes to the economy and affordability, Donald Trump, and I understand this, coming from something of a Pentecostal background and actually being a believer a little bit. I mean, I'd say a little bit. I fully understand like the power of positive thinking, right?
Yeah.
And so Trump comes up from this Norman Vincent Peale, and I think there's something to it. But he comes up from this Norman Vincent Peale philosophy, whereas Trump just sort of manifests reality, whether it's real or not. If he says it's true, it becomes true. And he is now denying like that there's an affordability problem, that there's inflation, that costs are up. And so I think it's gotten him, it's worked up until now, but at a certain point, it becomes untenable. And if real Americans are struggling and are not being able to get jobs and not able to afford things, Donald Trump is not going to appear to be just manifesting. He is going to appear to be out of touch and aloof and Marie Antoinette with his Great Gatsby ball party and his Lincoln bathroom renovation. And I feel like we're getting very close to that point now.
I think so. I think so too. And this is part of the problem of creating your own reality. That at some point you can convince people that everything is great. On the other hand, sometimes when you create your own reality, you begin to believe your own stuff. You get high in your own supply, and um, surrounding himself with the kind of yes men and yes women that he has, who's going to tell him? Who's going to say, Mr. Trump, the optics are really, really terrible here. You really can't do this. You can't say these kinds of things. Um, so yeah, I agree with you there. Hubris is always, part of the formula for the downfall of the great or the wannabe great. And going back to the ICE thing, the reason why it's not going to get any better is, as you point out, they are ideologues. They're also addicted to the MAGA porn of seeing the cruelty. They love this. They create videos of it. And secondly, the budget that was passed is injecting massive amounts of money into ICE. They are hiring thousands of these agents who do you think are the kinds of people that are applying for the jobs right now?
Yeah,
And what
it's
training
self-selecting.
do you, what kind of training do you think that they're going to get? So, um, I don't think that it gets any better for those people. And Trump in denial. The other day when he said, I don't want to hear about affordability anymore, kind of flashback to a couple of years ago when we were being assured that, oh, inflation's not a real thing. Don't take
Hmm.
it serious. I have this whiteboard to explain. That seldom works in American politics.
Yeah.
Well, I also
Ju-
just think that
yeah.
the whole, average person versus elitist thing. He ran as, I am the voice of the little man. And it's so increasingly obvious that he is in the service of his oligarchic billionaire, millionaire crony buddies. The pardons are, continue to get uglier and uglier. And, we have that on our list too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's go there. Um, Donald Trump keeps pardoning bad people. And he recently pardoned, people who were a part of the attempt to overturn the 2020 elections. And then there's stories like in the New York Times where people he's pardoning keep committing more crimes. In some cases, these are violent crimes. And so to me, I don't know at what point people notice this or pay attention. I mean, average people, but it feeds into the image about him being this, aloof, authoritarian type figure who
Mafia
is,
boss.
yeah, and he's taking care of his friends, his crypto pals. And meanwhile, the average working guy gets screwed. Not a
Well,
great
I don't know.
populist message.
Not a great populist message at all. And I do think that people are starting to notice, but you know what they really notice? And I don't know whether I did a live stream with Tara Palmieri yesterday on this. We were talking about the floated idea that Ghislaine Maxwell is asking to have her sentence commuted. Um, I think that will be one of those things that would cross a red line. I think Donald Trump thinks that he can, get away with anything. Yeah? Look, I pardoned all the January 6th rioters. I pardoned Rudy Giuliani and all these people, and the sky didn't fall. I don't know. I
Yeah.
think the Epstein stuff is different. I could be
Yeah.
wrong. Maybe nothing does matter. I just think people are going to go, "Are you kidding me?" That one.
Well, there's a report saying she's being waited on hand and foot at the Club Med prison she's in, so she might not even need to be let out yet. But look, he's going to do like the guy trying to buy condoms at the pharmacy, where it's like you get 10 items and then, oh yeah, I'll take these too. It's not just going to be Maxwell. When he pardons her, he's going to slide in maybe P. Diddy or something. This is my
Yeah,
prediction.
that's what
This is
she said too.
just a prediction.
Okay, or we're going to go to war with Venezuela.
Wag the dog. Yeah.
There's going to be. I mean, honestly, the moment that comes down, there's going to be something else. Look, Donald Trump actually has been pretty effective at the art of distraction. I think he's kind of losing his touch a little bit here. By the way, like where did and now I'm just distracting us from this conversation. Where did the 50-year mortgage come from? I mean, it's one of
Yeah.
those things where it kind of felt like it was somebody's brain bubble that they brought up over, Trump chocolate cake or something, and they just throw it up against the wall. And now I understand that there are people who are really, really bad at personal finance, bad at math, who might think this is a good idea. So maybe there is a constituency for it, but what the hell? I mean,
Well, no, there's a constituency for it, and they're called bankers because they're going to make another $700,000 per mortgage over the interest, the accumulation of time and interest. Charlie, there's this big thing happening right now that is, I wouldn't say under the radar, but there's a almost a generational divide taking place right now. Like there's a sense that boomers and maybe even Gen X folks were able to like buy houses when they were giving them away, when money was free, and lock
yeah,
in these low mortgage rates. And if you are trying to buy a home now, it is virtually impossible. Like it used to cost, if you wanted to own a home, it used to be like 3 times your salary would get you your house. Now it's like 8 times. Okay. And so if owning a house, if owning a home is the American dream, there are millions of Americans now who feel like the game is rigged against them, that they were sold a bill of goods, that they worked hard and played by the rules and did everything they were supposed to do. And now they're getting screwed, their jobs being automated, and they can't even afford a house. And it's the same phenomena that sort of hit working class white dudes in the Rust Belt 20, 30 years ago or whatever. It's now coming for all of us. And if you're right now graduating college, trying to get a job, trying to get married, you're going to be pissed off. And right now, the person you're going to be mad at is going to be Trump and the Republicans because they control everything. And they're pushing this optics and these ideas like the 50-year mortgage. So I expect, class warfare is the potent weapon right now. And certainly talking about affordability is where Democrats should be politically.
Well, I agree with you. And it comes down to this fundamental political question. Are you on my side or are you not on my side? And Trump has ridden that, the famous ad, she's for them, they and them, we are for you. I think that's flipping around on issues like this. And by the way, I do remember back from the 1970s when it did seem as if, as a young person with a family, that it was going to be impossible to ever have a house when you had double-digit mortgage rates and everything. And it really did feel as if the door was shut on the American dream. And of course, that resulted in the massive landslide victories of Ronald Reagan, because at that point, Jimmy Carter was talking about we need to learn to live with less and learn to live with austerity. That was not the message.
Americans, put on a sweater.
Democrats do need to have an abundance agenda. They do need to have a prosperity agenda. And this is something that we can talk about some other time. But the 50-year mortgage, I think most people look at that and go, wait, that's a lifetime of debt. And what a boon for the banks. You're not doing something for me, because actually, this is, I think, is the real killer. The monthly mortgage rates are not that much lower. I mean, monthly mortgage payments are not that much lower because the interest rate is higher on the 50-year mortgage than on the 30-year mortgage. And you will never get out from under it. So I don't know. It just struck me as one of these ideas that they're churning up stuff to throw up against the wall that just doesn't, it's not resonating the way that it does at Mar-a-Lago.
But to come full circle, if Democrats had some killers, if they had Carville and Bagala circa 1992 or something, they would take this issue and shove it down. I don't want to get too worked up. I'm not going to curse. They would weaponize this more effectively. they would be. Donald Trump is handing them, like he is Marie Antoinette. He is so out of touch.
Yes.
But there's nobody, and I'm telling you, man, there's a difference between going full circle here. You can be a centrist and be tough, but these people, like these Democrat, we'll call it moderates, and they reminds me of, I forget which Republican moderate it was from Maine or New Hampshire or something, like Susan Collins or something. Do you remember back after Trump tried to overthrow the government, and she's like, I think he learned his lesson this time.
Yeah, that was Susan Collins.
You know what I'm saying? Like these was that the impeachment? Okay, my apologies. Thanks for the correction. But these moderates, they're not just moderate in the sense of being centrist. Like they are like moderate, squishy. Just they don't stand up for anything. They're weak.
Don't call them moderates.
If Democrats had a fighter, they could take. Trump is handing them so much ammunition.
Okay, so here's the thing. The problem, the divide here is not these are the centrists or these are the moderates. It's that you either fight or you don't fight. And look, I actually am in that weird position where I am a centrist who really wants to fight really hard and who does understand that he is handing you these issues. And you know what? You can still be a centrist and say, look, this is a guy who is basically whoring out the government to the oligarchic class. He is not for you. You can't afford groceries. You can't afford a house. You can't afford. And look at the bullshit that what he's doing, the giveaways. There was actually a story over the weekend buried in the New York Times. I haven't even heard much discussion about it, where Trump, the Treasury Department, is going around cutting special tax breaks for these really, really rich corporations. I mean, if this is not an issue, you can go, well, average Americans are struggling, And look, this is the government by the rich for the rich. Class warfare, I think, is dangerous if it leads to socialism. I think, bear with me. But the reality is that you can be a conservative, a centrist, and still be absolutely appalled at the crony capitalism and the vast, vast gaps in wealth. I mean, by the way, one of the big stories of the week, while we were cutting off food aid last week, Elon Musk gets a $1 trillion payday. Again, if you wanted a symbol of the Marie Antoinette moment you're in, you have the parties, you have the ballroom, and you have Elon Musk getting $1 trillion. Because you know what, Matt? This guy who was going through, all of our programs with the chainsaw, he could not be expected to eke out the subsistence on a mere $100 million. See, this is a kind of conversation. Like, who can't live on $100 million? So you have to have like
there is so much anger. There is so much anger in the country of people who are being left behind, people who were sold a bill of goods, and now their country's being run by a casino magnate billionaire who gets his buddies out of prison and is being paid off. And meanwhile, you're out there working a job, working 2 or 3 jobs, trying to put food on the table. If someone could tap into that anger and energy, then they might actually have a pretty strong political movement. I'm not sure these Democrats are prepared for that.
No, well, and in many ways, and this is the weird part about it, Trump tapped into that sense that we were left behind, that we played by the rules and society is rigged against us. He tapped into that sort of anger and disillusionment. But look how he is actually governing. Look who he favors. Look what his priorities are. Somebody at the White House said, yes, our number one priority now is building the East Wing ballroom.
Yeah. It was,
okay.
It was his press secretary, right?
Yeah. You know who's actually doing the best?
Said, number one priority.
You know who's actually doing the best job about this, the messaging? I think, by the way, first of all, anyone who's looking to official Democrat Washington for leadership it's the wrong place. It's not coming. You're getting a lot more, I think, from the countryside. The late night talk show hosts actually get this pretty well. I mean, you spend a few nights watching Jimmy Kimmel or watching Stephen Colbert. These guys are the ones who are tapping into all of this, and they have a pretty big audience. But I would suggest that many of the talking heads, the cable TV folks who keep reciting the same old cliches and talking points, just maybe check in with them once in a while, because I think they get exactly what you just described.
Well, and you know who else seems to get it are the Democratic primary voters. If you look at Plattner up in Maine, who has said some crazy, horrible things, and the voters are like, yeah, but he fights. How about Jay Jones down in Virginia, the Attorney General elect, who texted some horrific things, violent things, and the voters said, but he's going to fight against Trump. They're basically doing what Republicans did a decade ago when you and I tried to stop it. You and I warned at that time. I'll speak for myself then. I warned a decade ago. I told Republicans, he fights for what? You're voting for Trump just because he's a fighter? But he fights for what? And is fighting the end all and be all of human existence? And apparently it was. For them, they thought that fighting was the most important quality they wanted in a political candidate, they viewed politics as a team. You stick together, and that's kind of where I think Democrats, not these moderate Democrats, but the Democrat base are now kind of the primary voters who voted for Plattner. They're getting there. I think we can lament it, but I'm just describing the zeitgeist right now, and these Democratic politicians need to at least understand what time it is, or they're going to be left by the side of the road.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some important cautionary notes, because I remember all of the tingle up the leg over, how cool John Fetterman was. Oh, John Fetterman is the hottest thing, I mean, you want to talk about a load of bullshit. I was actually at an event in Pennsylvania the other day, sitting with Connor Lamb, the former Republican Democratic congressman. Perfect center-left Democrat who won in swing districts, ran in the Senate, and in their infinite wisdom, the Democratic primary voters in Pennsylvania chose John Fetterman over Connor Lamb. one of the worst decisions in a very, very long time. But I do remember all the pundits who got themselves all tumescent over how cool John Fetterman was. So don't make that kind of mistake. Hey, by the way,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask
who
you.
was the Stormy Jones lawyer? Remember that guy?
Stormy
You know what I'm
Daniels?
talking about? Stormy Daniels had a lawyer who, for a brief
Oh, no.
time,
I have a
was
picture of myself with him. I really do.
okay.
Yeah.
That guy, whatever his name is, was going to be the Democratic great white hope
He
savior
was so okay. The fact we
fighter.
can't remember his name. This is
Yeah.
what's great about it. People can be really, really famous, like absolutely everywhere. It was
Avenatti, Michael Avenatti. Someone,
Michael
yeah,
Michael
someone told me.
Avenatti. I was on a bunch of shows with him, and then there's the moment where you go, wait, this guy's completely full of shit, and this has happened again and again and again. That people want to love somebody, and then it turns out like the signals were always there. Maybe you should have paid attention to them, like And I'm sorry. Well, I'm not going to make a long list of people like that. No. So did you eventually got home with the air traffic problems? I know you were stuck up in Maine for a while.
Yeah, it
You and
wasn't
I
that
were you
bad.
and
I
I
was
were
just
both you
delayed.
and I were both on the
Yeah.
road last week.
Yeah, I was
It
just
was
delayed a
okay.
couple of hours, made it back. But thank God I did. It was just touch and go there for a minute. I was going to have to build a little shanty town there by the Starbucks, but made it back. But my wife's traveling this week and next week, and the airlines are still jacked up, man. It's
Yeah.
because because we know the government's going to reopen doesn't mean that the air traffic controllers are showing up. So, how about you? You were at Gettysburg near my
I was in
stop.
Gettysburg. So yeah, at the very day that they were canceling all the flights, with that Friday, I had to fly through Atlanta. And so I was thinking, oh boy, because I'd seen that you were already stuck up in Maine, and I thought that you and I would probably be able to share our travel nightmares on today's show. I actually had no problem whatsoever. I don't know how. It's just texted my wife, travel miracle. I'm actually getting home today, which I did. But you did feel as if, like on Friday, that all of the incompetence and arrogance of the Trump administration was coming to a head in very great graphic terms. And I guess coming back to the shutdown, would it have hurt them to have waited another week? Why did it have to be this weekend? What is that about?
Yeah.
And that just tells me that these people, and look, you've been involved in these sort of things. You get into a room and you lose perspective of what people are thinking and feeling. You lose some perspective about what the real stakes are, and you make decisions that look absolutely tone deaf. And unfortunately, I think that look, the Democrats cannot go into the midterm elections, cannot go into 2025 with a leader like Chuck Schumer, who does not have the trust or the respect of the Democratic base anymore. I don't know what
Yeah.
they're actually going to do, but at some point you need to have leaders who will actually lead, not manage, not
Hmm.
and this is the thing about the legislative branch. You've hung around senators, right? That
As,
that often they can
as
be
little as possible.
well, they do get sucked into these vortexes of trivia, right? I mean, the details of legislation, and when you ask them to articulate some sort of a vision or some sort of they often fall short. And I think that Chuck Schumer is just too far down that
Yeah,
path.
I agree. So let's end on this one, though, Charlie, because this is something I would not have thought even 6 months ago that I would be saying. But in 2025, a hero has emerged for Democrats, and his name is Gavin Newsom. And it's stunning to me because I didn't like Gavin Newsom for a variety of reasons. And he doesn't fit the populist spirit of the times by any stretch. But
Oh,
look, this guy, I'll give you just 3 data points, right? Number one, he starts trolling Trump using the internet, using memes, demonstrating to me that he kind of gets it in a way that none of these Democrats get it, how to fight Trump and survive and win and mock him. So that worked. Then he stands up to Trump over the gerrymandering, passes Proposition 50 last week in California. They're going to get 5 seats out of California, which will match whatever Texas gerrymanders. So he stood up to that test. Then he flies down to Texas and does a rally in Houston with the huge American flag behind him and does a victory lap. So the guy's got moxie. And so I am as surprised as anybody. I don't think he's I do not think he's perfectly cast to be the alternative. He's not what I would have envisioned, but he may be the only guy who's tough enough and prepared enough and is willing to fight. I'll use that word again, fight. He's the one guy.
Yeah, this is the moment, and I agree with that. I'm been a Gavin Newsom skeptic. I never thought that I would say this, but he does seem to have figured out what the moment is, what the game is. I mean, everybody else is sort of bringing their checker set to the Thunderdome. He actually sort of understands exactly what the rules are here. Um, his big problem, of course, is the one that he can't fix, which is he's from California, and California has a certain image there, and there's a lot of baggage. But at this point, I do think that people are they're looking for leaders. They're looking for people who can match the moment. And our whole conversation here is Democrats who did not meet the moment. He has met the moment. By the way, speaking of meeting the moment, Donald Trump wants to have this new Commanders stadium named after him, $3 billion NFL stadium. Goes to the game the other day. Have you seen the videos of the booing?
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. Yeah,
that was
a lot of times, you'll see like a headline. It's like Charlie Sykes gets owned, or Donald Trump gets booed, and then you watch the video and it's like, well, there are two people booing, but 5 people clapping. But in this case, it actually lived up to the billing.
I actually see that was exactly my reaction as well, because I know how these things go, and sometimes you'll go out and half the crowd will be cheering, and it depends where the microphone is. This one was amazing, and it just went on and on and on. Even you could see in his face that he's doing it. But I guess in terms of just the hubris that here he is sitting around. What is the president of the United States thinking about? I want this stadium named after me, because like how many stadiums in the country are named after living politicians? Like none. He wants a coin with his face on it. It's the narcissism that, on one level, is kind of a joke, but if the mood of the country begins to shift, it's going to look, I'm sorry, go back to the Marie Antoinette regime out there, and I think that's deadly. I really do.
Me too. All right. Somehow I punched myself out, and I've gotten it out. It was very cathartic today. I feel relaxed.
Yeah,
I'm happy now. I got it out of my system. It was just an hour of like
this is why we do
primal.
This was our primal scream.
Yes. Charlie, anything you want to plug or mention?
No, I think that we're going to get through this, and I think that the reason why you and I are both frustrated is that the last week proved that resistance is not futile. You could sort of feel that little light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe it is an oncoming train. I don't know. But we didn't need the cave in. But maybe it's one of those moments where it will be so cathartic and the anger is so intense that maybe the Democrats will move on and recognize that, hey, you know what? These are not normal times. We cannot have normal politicians. And all the hack pundits out there who are trying to convince us that everything's okay. They also are not meeting the moment. So again,
well, never what's the line? Don't pre-surrender. And I'm reminded, I don't want to bring up a weird, dangerous analogy at the very end here, but I will.
Do it.
One of the reasons, here we go. One of the reasons Hitlerism was able to take off was because Germany surrendered in World War I, because Germany knew they were going to lose, right? But to the average German, it felt like they were winning. And Germany, so it allowed the stabbed in the back narrative to take hold. Now, it was a bullshit conspiracy theory. Germany surrendered because they knew they couldn't win. They were going to lose, but they were actually losing when they surrendered. And So there's like a danger in pre-surrendering before anybody can feel it. And so I'm with you, Charlie. Why not just let this go one more week? If they let it go one more week, they would have had time to celebrate the election. It would have felt like a million years. And if this had happened 1 week later,
yeah. Also, so you went to Hitler. I'll go with a different analogy. You cannot fight the tiger by wearing a meat suit. Let me just put it that way. Meditate upon it.
I will. I have a week to do it till we're back here next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern time, as always. Make sure to subscribe to us both on Substack. And Charlie, always a pleasure, man. We'll see you all back here next week.
Thank you.